My fiancé laughed and said, "You're sweet and all, but I don't find you attractive anymore. I need an alpha male who can actually take care of me properly, not some boring beta loser." I smiled and replied, "You deserve exactly what you're looking for." Then I secretly applied for the head manager position at her company. At their Christmas party, they introduced me as the new regional director. When she saw me walk onto the stage, her face went completely pale as she realized I was now her new boss. This happened about 8 months ago, but I'm finally ready to share this story. Fair warning, it's a long one, but I promise it's worth the read. For context, I'm Benjamin Kumar, 32, and I work in corporate operations management. I've always been what you might call a quiet achiever. I do my work well, don't make a fuss, and prefer to let my results speak for themselves. Some people mistake this for being weak or passive, which becomes important later. My ex-fiancée was Rebecca Wilson, 29, who worked as a senior marketing coordinator at Meridian Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company about 40 minutes from where we lived. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months, and I genuinely thought we were building something real together. Rebecca was complicated, beautiful, charismatic, ambitious, but also someone who seemed to constantly need validation from others. She was always talking about wanting to level up in life, whatever that meant. She followed all these lifestyle influencers on social media and was constantly comparing our relationship to these carefully curated online personas. The problem started about a year into our engagement. Rebecca began making little comments about how I was too nice or too accommodating. She'd roll her eyes when I'd offer to cook dinner or suggest we stay in and watch a movie instead of going out to expensive restaurants. She started going out with her work friends more often, coming home late and being evasive about where she'd been. I tried to address it several times, asking if something was wrong, if there was anything I could do to help. She'd always brush it off, saying I was being paranoid or overthinking things. But I could feel her pulling away, and it was killing me. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in March. I'd had a particularly good day at work. My team had just closed a major efficiency project that saved my company about $2.3 million annually. I was excited to share the news with Rebecca, maybe celebrate a little. When I got home, she was sitting at our kitchen table with her laptop closed and her hands folded in front of her. The look on her face immediately told me this wasn't going to be a celebration. "Benjamin, we need to talk," she said, not even looking up when I walked in. I sat down across from her, my stomach already dropping. "What's going on?" She finally looked at me, and there was this cold, almost disgusted expression in her eyes that I'd never seen before. "I can't do this anymore. This whole thing. Us. It's not working." "What do you mean? Did something happen? We can work through whatever." She held up her hand to stop me. "No, Benjamin. There's nothing to work through. The problem is just you." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Me? What did I do wrong? That's when she said it. The words that are burned into my memory forever. "You're sweet and all, but I don't find you attractive anymore. I need an alpha male who can actually take care of me properly, not some boring beta loser." I just sat there for a moment, processing what she'd just said. 3 years together. 6 months engaged. And this was how she saw me. But here's the thing, I didn't get angry. I didn't yell or argue or beg her to reconsider. Instead, something cold and calculating settled over me. I looked at her sitting there, so confident in her cruelty, and I smiled. "You know what, Rebecca? You're absolutely right. You deserve exactly what you're looking for." She seemed surprised by my calm reaction. Maybe she expected me to fall apart or fight for her. Instead, I stood up, took off my engagement ring, and set it on the table between us. "I'll start looking for a new place tomorrow. Take whatever time you need to get your things together." The next few weeks were a blur of apartment hunting, moving logistics, and paperwork. Rebecca seemed almost disappointed by how smoothly everything went. I think she wanted drama, wanted me to prove how much I needed her. Instead, I was polite, efficient, and completely emotionless in all our interactions. But while I appeared to be moving on, I was actually planning something much more significant. You see, when Rebecca called me a boring beta loser, she made a critical error in judgment. She assumed that because I was quiet and accommodating in our personal relationship, I must be weak and ineffective in all areas of my life. She had no idea what I was actually capable of professionally. During our relationship, I'd made a point of keeping work separate from home life. Rebecca knew I had some kind of management job, but I'd never gone into details about my role, my achievements, or my career trajectory. She wasn't particularly interested anyway, she was always more focused on her own career ambitions. What Rebecca didn't know was that I was actually quite successful in my field. I'd been working as a senior operations director at Hartwell Corporation for the past 4 years, managing efficiency projects across multiple industries. I had an MBA from a top-tier school, several professional certifications, and a track record of delivering major cost savings and process improvements for my clients. More importantly, I'd been quietly building a reputation in the industry. I'd spoken at conferences, published articles in trade journals, and developed relationships with executives at companies throughout the region. Including, as it turned out, Meridian Industries. About 2 months after Rebecca and I split up, I was at an industry networking event when I ran into Patricia Hassan, who I knew from a previous consulting project. Patricia had recently been promoted to VP of Operations at Meridian Industries, Rebecca's company. "Benjamin. Good to see you," Patricia said, approaching me during the cocktail portion of the evening. "I heard through the grapevine that you might be looking for new opportunities." I was surprised. I hadn't been actively job hunting, but word travels fast in our industry. "I'm always open to interesting conversations," I replied carefully. "Well, we've got a situation at Meridian that I think might be right up your alley. We're looking for a new regional operations director. It's a big role, you'd be overseeing operations across 6 facilities, managing a team of about 40 people, and reporting directly to the executive committee." My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. "That does sound interesting. What's the timeline?" "We're hoping to have someone in place before the end of the year. The salary range is $180,000 to $220,000, plus performance bonuses and equity. You'd basically be running the entire operational side of the business." I did some quick mental math. Rebecca made about $65,000 in her marketing role. If I took this position, I'd not only be earning nearly triple her salary, I'd also be about 3 levels above her in the corporate hierarchy. "I'd definitely like to learn more," I said, trying to keep the excitement out of my voice. What followed was the most intense job interview process of my career. 3 rounds of interviews, a presentation to the executive team, reference checks, and a comprehensive background review. But I knew I was the right fit, and apparently, so did they. The offer came through in early November, $195,000 base salary, 25% performance bonus potential, stock options, and a start date of December 1st. I accepted immediately. But here's where the revenge aspect really kicks in. When I signed my employment contract, I made sure to ask about the company's Christmas party. It was scheduled for December 18th, just a few weeks after my start date. Patricia mentioned that it was a big event, they always used it to introduce new senior leadership to the broader organization. Perfect. I started at Meridian on December 1st, but I made sure to keep a very low profile during my first few weeks. I worked mostly from the executive offices on the top floor, attended meetings with other senior leaders, and had minimal interaction with the general employee population. My introduction to the broader company would happen at the Christmas party, just as Patricia had mentioned. During those first weeks, I did some discreet research on Rebecca's current situation. From what I could gather through professional networking sites and casual conversations, she was still in the same marketing coordinator role she'd held when we were together. She'd been passed over for a promotion earlier in the year and was apparently becoming increasingly frustrated with her career progress. I also learned some interesting details about her personal life. Through mutual friends and social media posts, it became clear that she'd started seeing someone new, a guy named Dante Petrov who worked as a personal trainer at an upscale gym. Based on her social media activity, he seemed to fit her description of an alpha male perfectly. Lots of gym selfies, expensive cars, flashy clothes, and the kind of aggressive confidence that some people mistake for strength. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd left me for not being financially successful enough to take care of her properly, and then immediately started seeing someone who made maybe $40,000 a year helping rich people do squats. But I wasn't focused on her personal choices. I had bigger plans. The Christmas party was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel downtown, a fancy venue with a ballroom that could accommodate all 300+ employees. I arrived early to meet with Patricia and the other executives, going over the evening's agenda and my formal introduction to the company. "We're really excited to have you on board, Benjamin," Patricia said as we reviewed my bio for the evening's presentation. "The operations improvements you've implemented in just these few weeks have already caught the attention of the board." I smiled. "I'm just getting started." The party officially began at 7 p.m. I spent the first hour mingling with my new executive colleagues, staying mostly in the VIP area that was separate from the main ballroom. From my vantage point, I could see the rest of the party happening below, but I was confident that none of the general employees had spotted me yet. At about 8:30, Patricia approached me with a microphone. Ready for your big debut? I straightened my tie and nodded. Let's do this. The lights dimmed and Patricia took the stage. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying the party. Before we get to the dancing and fun stuff, I have a very special announcement to make. The crowd quieted down, and I could see people gathering closer to the stage. From my position in the wings, I scanned the audience until I found Rebecca. She was standing near the back with Dante, wearing a red dress that I remembered her buying for a work event the previous year. She looked bored, probably wondering why they were interrupting the party for corporate announcements. As many of you know, Patricia continued, we've been searching for a new regional operations director to lead our expansion efforts and drive operational excellence across all our facilities. I'm thrilled to announce that we've found someone truly exceptional for this role. I took a deep breath and prepared for what was about to happen. Please join me in welcoming our new regional operations director, Benjamin Kumar. I walked onto the stage with the confidence that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The applause was polite but enthusiastic. People were clearly curious about the new senior leadership. But I wasn't looking at the crowd. I was looking directly at Rebecca. The moment she saw me, her face went completely white. Her mouth fell open, and I watched as she grabbed Dante's arm for support. The realization of what was happening hit her like a freight train. The man she'd called a boring beta loser was now standing on stage as a senior executive at her company. The man she'd said couldn't take care of her properly was now earning more than triple her salary. The man she'd dismissed as weak and unambitious was now in a position of authority that she could only dream of reaching. I gave a brief speech about my excitement to join the Meridian family and my vision for operational excellence. The whole time, I could see Rebecca in the crowd, looking like she was about to be sick. After my presentation, I worked the room like the professional I am. I shook hands, made small talk, and gradually made my way through different sections of the party. But I made sure to avoid Rebecca's area. I wanted her to stew in the realization for a while. It was around 10 p.m. when she finally approached me. I was talking with some of the other department heads when I saw her pushing through the crowd, Dante trailing behind her looking confused. Benjamin, she said, her voice shaky. I had no idea you were. Congratulations on the new position. I turned to face her with a smile that was all business. Rebecca. Good to see you. I hope you're enjoying the party. The department heads I'd been talking with excused themselves, sensing the awkward personal dynamic. Dante stood next to Rebecca looking like he had no idea what was happening. I can't believe you didn't tell me, Rebecca said, trying to recover some composure. This is amazing. You must be so excited. It's a great opportunity, I replied neutrally. I'm looking forward to working with everyone here to drive some real improvements. There was a long, uncomfortable pause. Rebecca kept glancing around like she was hoping someone would rescue her from the conversation. Well, she finally said, I guess I should let you get back to executive things. Maybe we can grab coffee sometime and catch up properly? I smiled that same cold smile I'd given her in our kitchen 8 months earlier. I'm sure our paths will cross regularly now that we're colleagues. Have a great evening, Rebecca. And with that, I walked away, leaving her standing there with the full weight of her mistake settling on her shoulders. But that was just the beginning. Over the next few months, I began implementing the operational changes that I'd been hired to make. These weren't personal, they were genuine business improvements that the company desperately needed. But as it turned out, many of these changes had a direct impact on Rebecca's department and role. The first major change came in January. During my assessment of the company's operational efficiency, I discovered that the marketing department was significantly overstaffed for the actual value they were delivering. They had 6 coordinators doing work that could easily be handled by 3 or 4 people, and their campaign ROI was well below industry standards. I presented my findings to the executive committee along with a comprehensive restructuring plan. It wasn't about Rebecca specifically, it was about creating a more efficient and effective marketing operation. But the end result was that her department would need to be downsized. We're looking at eliminating 2 coordinator positions and restructuring the remaining roles to focus on higher impact activities, I explained during the presentation. This will improve our marketing ROI by an estimated 35% while reducing operational costs by $180,000 annually. The executives were impressed with the analysis and approved the restructuring immediately. As the regional operations director, it was my responsibility to work with HR and the department managers to implement the changes. Rebecca's manager, Grace O'Connor, was actually relieved when I presented the plan to her. Honestly, Benjamin, I've been saying for months that we need to streamline this department. Some of the coordinators just aren't pulling their weight. When it came time to decide which positions to eliminate, the The choice was based purely on performance metrics and objective criteria. Rebecca had been with the company longer than some of the other coordinators, but her performance reviews over the past year had been mediocre at best. She'd missed several important deadlines, her campaign results were consistently below average, and she'd received multiple complaints from other departments about communication issues. I wasn't involved in the final decision, that was left to Grace and HR. But when the announcement came down that Rebecca was one of the 2 coordinators being let go, I can't say I was surprised. The termination meeting happened on a Thursday morning in February. I wasn't present for it, but Grace filled me in on the details later. She didn't take it well, Grace said during our weekly check-in. She seemed shocked, kept asking if there was any way to appeal the decision. She also mentioned something about this being personal, which I didn't understand. I nodded sympathetically. These kinds of restructurings are never easy on the people affected. Did she say anything specific about it being personal? She mentioned that she knew you personally, and suggested that might have influenced the decision. I assured her that all personnel decisions were based solely on performance and business needs. That's correct, I replied. I made sure to recuse myself from any direct involvement in the individual personnel decisions to avoid any appearance of impropriety. And that was true. I've been very careful to ensure that every action I took was professionally justified and ethically sound. I never used my position to directly target Rebecca or treat her unfairly. I simply did my job, which happened to involve making the company more efficient, regardless of how that affected any individual employee. Rebecca's last day was February 28th. I made sure to be in meetings off-site that day to avoid any awkward encounters. But I heard from other employees that she spent most of her final day cleaning out her desk and making calls, presumably trying to line up new job prospects. What she discovered, unfortunately, was that the job market for marketing coordinators in our area was pretty tight. Most companies were downsizing their marketing departments just like Meridian had done, and the positions that were available typically paid significantly less than what she'd been making. Meanwhile, my own career at Meridian was taking off. The operational improvements I'd implemented in my first 6 months had exceeded everyone's expectations. We'd reduced manufacturing costs by 12%, improved delivery times by 18%, and increased overall efficiency ratings across all facilities. In June, Patricia called me into her office for my 6-month performance review. "Benjamin, I have to say, the board is extremely impressed with what you've accomplished here. The cost savings alone have more than justified your entire salary and then some." "Thank you, Patricia. I'm really enjoying the challenges here." "Well, I hope you're ready for even bigger challenges. We're promoting you to Vice President of Operations, effective immediately. You'll be taking over my responsibilities while I move up to Senior VP. This comes with a salary increase to $240,000, plus expanded equity options." I tried to contain my excitement, but inside I was celebrating. In less than a year since Rebecca had called me a boring beta loser, I'd gone from Senior Director at my old company to VP at Meridian, with a salary increase of over $80,000. The promotion was announced company-wide the following week, along with several other organizational changes. I wondered if Rebecca would hear about it through the industry grapevine, and what she'd think when she did. I didn't have to wonder for long. 3 days after the promotion announcement, I received a LinkedIn message from Rebecca. It was sent late at night and was clearly written in an emotional state. "Benjamin, I heard about your promotion. Congratulations. I know things ended badly between us, and I wanted to reach out and apologize for how I handled everything. I was going through a difficult time and I said some things that I deeply regret. I've been struggling to find work since leaving Meridian, and I was wondering if there might be any opportunities there that would be a good fit for my experience. I know this is awkward given our history, but I'm hoping we can put the past behind us and maybe discuss some possibilities. I'd really appreciate a chance to talk." I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about how to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely, but I decided that a response was appropriate, if only to provide complete closure to this chapter of my life. I wrote back, "Rebecca, thank you for reaching out and for the apology. I appreciate you taking responsibility for how things ended between us. Regarding employment opportunities at Meridian, I would recommend reaching out to our HR department directly if you're interested in any open positions. They handle all recruiting and hiring decisions. All the best with your job search." It was professional, polite, and completely non-committal. I wasn't going to help her get a job, but I also wasn't going to be petty or cruel about it. She responded within an hour. "I understand. Thank you for being so professional about this. I hope you know that I really did care about you, and I realize now that I made a huge mistake. You've clearly accomplished so much, and I'm genuinely happy for your success. I just wish things could have been different between us." I read the message twice and then deleted it without responding. There was nothing left to say. Over the next few months, I heard occasional updates about Rebecca through mutual acquaintances. Her relationship with Dante had ended badly sometime in the spring. Apparently he'd been seeing multiple women and had run up significant debts that he expected her to help cover. She'd moved back in with her parents temporarily while looking for work and trying to get back on her feet financially. Eventually, she found a position with a smaller marketing firm about an hour away from the city. The salary was about 30% less than what she'd been making at Meridian, and the role was actually a step backward in terms of responsibility and career growth. Meanwhile, my career continued to flourish. By the end of my first year at Meridian, I'd been recognized as Executive of the Year by the Regional Business Association. The operational improvements under my leadership had saved the company over $4.2 million and positioned us for significant expansion into new markets. I'd also started dating someone new, Luna Garcia, who I'd met at a professional conference. Luna was a brilliant environmental engineer who ran her own consulting firm. She was confident without being arrogant, successful without being materialistic, and genuinely supportive of my career ambitions. More importantly, she appreciated my quiet strength rather than seeing it as a weakness. The final piece of this story happened about 6 months ago, almost exactly 2 years after Rebecca had called me a boring beta loser. I was at a charity fundraiser that Meridian was sponsoring when I spotted a familiar face across the room. Rebecca was there, apparently representing her new company at the event. She looked tired and stressed, and she was clearly uncomfortable in the networking environment. She noticed me eventually and, after what appeared to be an internal debate, made her way over to where I was standing with Luna and a few other Meridian executives. "Benjamin," she said quietly. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Rebecca. Good to see you. How are things going?" "There. Fine. Good. I'm with Henderson Marketing now. We're a smaller firm, but we do good work." I nodded politely. "That's great. Rebecca, I'd like you to meet Luna Garcia. Luna, this is Rebecca Wilson, we used to know each other." Luna extended her hand with a warm smile. "Nice to meet you, Rebecca." The contrast between the two women was stark. Luna radiated confidence and success, while Rebecca seemed diminished somehow, like life had worn her down over the past 2 years. We made small talk for a few minutes, but it was clearly awkward for everyone involved. Eventually, Rebecca excused herself and disappeared back into the crowd. "Ex-girlfriend?" Luna asked after Rebecca had left. "Ex-fiancé, actually." Luna raised an eyebrow. "She seemed intimidated by you. What happened there?" I thought about how to answer that question. She decided I wasn't ambitious enough for her. Turns out she was wrong about that. Luna squeezed my arm and smiled. "Her loss. And that, really, is the end of the story." Rebecca had wanted an alpha male who could take care of her properly. Instead, she'd ended up with a personal trainer who cheated on her and left her in debt, while the boring beta loser she'd rejected went on to become a successful executive earning nearly 4 times her current salary. The revenge wasn't malicious or personal, it was simply the natural consequence of her own poor judgment. She'd looked at a quiet, hard-working man and seen weakness instead of strength. She'd mistaken kindness for lack of ambition and stability for boring mediocrity. In trying to trade up for someone more exciting, she'd actually traded down in every measurable way. And by the time she realized her mistake, it was far too late to undo the damage. I don't take any particular satisfaction in her struggles, I'm too busy enjoying my own success to spend much time thinking about her failures. But I do appreciate the poetic justice of it all. She'd wanted an alpha male, and she got exactly what she deserved. Update, added 3 hours later. Wow, this blew up way more than I expected. Thank you for all the awards and comments. A few people have asked for clarifications, so I'll address the most common questions. Did you specifically target her company for revenge? No. The opportunity at Meridian came up through normal professional networking. I didn't even know Rebecca worked there when I first interviewed. When I found out during the process, I seriously considered withdrawing my application, but my mentor convinced me not to let personal history interfere with a great career opportunity. Were the layoffs really justified, or did you engineer them to get her fired? The operational assessment was completely legitimate. I actually brought in an external consulting firm to validate my findings before presenting them to the executive committee. Rebecca's position was eliminated based on objective performance data and business needs, not personal vendetta. Do you feel bad about what happened to her? Honestly? No. She made her choice when she decided to be cruel and dismissive about ending our relationship. I didn't cause her problems, her own poor judgment and work performance did that. What's your relationship status now? Luna and I got engaged last month. She's everything Rebecca never was, supportive, genuinely successful, and secure enough in herself that she doesn't need to tear others down to feel better about herself. Thanks again for reading, everyone. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well. Final update, added 1 day later. This will be my last update on this post, but I wanted to address something that happened yesterday that feels relevant to the story. I received a text message from Rebecca yesterday afternoon. I have no idea how she got my current phone number, but the message was pretty desperate. Benjamin, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I'm in a really bad place right now. I lost my job at Henderson last week, and I'm struggling to find anything else. I know I hurt you and I know I don't deserve your help, but I was wondering if there might be any way you could put in a good word for me somewhere. I'm not asking for special treatment, just maybe a reference or a connection. I'm really struggling and I don't know who else to ask. I showed the message to Luna, and we talked about how to handle it. Luna, being the generous person she is, suggested that maybe I should consider helping if I could do so without compromising my professional reputation. But after thinking about it overnight, I decided that the kindest thing I could do for Rebecca was to not respond at all. She needs to learn to stand on her own and solve her own problems, rather than looking for someone else to rescue her from the consequences of her choices. Besides, given our history and my current position in the industry, any reference I provided would likely do more harm than good to both of our reputations. Some people in the comments suggested that I should have responded with something cutting or cruel, but that's not who I am. The fact that she's struggling isn't something I celebrate, it's just not something I'm responsible for fixing. The real victory isn't that she's having problems. The real victory is that I've built a life that I'm genuinely proud of, with someone who appreciates me for who I am rather than trying to change me into someone else. Rebecca taught me an important lesson about knowing my own worth and not settling for people who don't appreciate it. For that, I suppose I should thank her. But I'll do that privately, in my own thoughts. She doesn't need to hear from me again. Thanks again for all the support, everyone. This community is amazing. Major update, added 1 week later. I wasn't planning to update this again, but something significant happened that I think you all need to hear about. This whole situation took a turn that I never could have predicted. So remember how I mentioned that Rebecca had texted me asking for help finding work? Well, it turns out that wasn't the end of her attempts to reconnect. What I didn't mention in my previous updates was that she'd also been reaching out to some of our mutual friends, apparently trying to get information about my personal life and career situation. My friend Aiden Mitchell, who had stayed neutral during our breakup, called me last Tuesday with some concerning information. Ben, I need to tell you something, he said. Rebecca contacted me last week asking a bunch of questions about you. At first I thought she was just curious about how you were doing, but then the questions got weird. Weird how? She was asking about your salary, your position at Meridian, whether you were seeing anyone seriously. But then she started asking about Luna specifically, how long you'd been together, whether it was serious, if you were happy. It felt like she was fishing for information for some specific purpose. I felt a chill run down my spine. Did she say what she wanted the information for? Not directly, but Ben. I think she might be planning something. She kept talking about how she'd made a mistake and how she needed to fix things before it was too late. She also mentioned something about deserving a second chance and how successful relationships require forgiveness. This was concerning on multiple levels. Luna and I had been together for over a year, and our relationship was solid. We'd even started talking about moving in together and had been looking at houses in the suburbs. The last thing I needed was my ex-fiancé trying to interfere with my personal life. I decided to give Luna a heads up about the situation. She took it better than I expected. So your ex is basically stalking you through mutual friends? She asked, raising an eyebrow. It sounds dramatic when you put it like that, but yeah, essentially. Luna was quiet for a moment, then smiled in a way that reminded me why I'd fallen for her in the first place. Well, she's about to be very disappointed. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The following Friday, I was working late at the office when my assistant, Chloe Davis, knocked on my door. Mr. Kumar? There's someone here to see you. She says it's personal and urgent. I had a sinking feeling I knew who it was. Did she give you a name? Rebecca Wilson. She's quite insistent. I sighed. This was exactly what I'd been hoping to avoid. Please tell her that I'm not available for personal meetings during business hours, and suggest that she contact me through appropriate channels if she has any professional matters to discuss. Chloe nodded and left, but she was back 5 minutes later looking uncomfortable. She's refusing to leave, sir. She says she'll wait in the lobby until you're available, Even if it takes all night. Security is asking how you'd like them to handle the situation. This was rapidly becoming unprofessional and potentially embarrassing. The last thing I needed was my ex-fiancé causing a scene in my workplace.
Tell security to give her 15 minutes in conference room B, I said finally.
But ask them to remain nearby in case the situation escalates. I took a few minutes to compose myself, then walked down to the conference room. Rebecca was sitting at the table, looking more put together than she had at the charity event, but there was something desperate in her eyes that made me immediately uncomfortable. Rebecca, I thought I made it clear that we don't have anything to discuss. She stood up as I entered the room. Benjamin, please. Just hear me out. I know I messed up, and I know I hurt you, but I've learned so much about myself over the past 2 years. I'm glad you've had time for self-reflection, but this isn't appropriate. You can't just show up at my workplace and demand a meeting. I tried texting you, calling you, reaching out through LinkedIn. You won't respond to any of my attempts to communicate. Because we don't have anything to communicate about, I said firmly. We're not friends, we're not colleagues, and we're certainly not getting back together. I've moved on, and you should do the same. That's when she started crying. Not just tears, but full-on sobbing that immediately made me worry about how this looked to anyone who might be observing from outside the conference room. I know you hate me, she said between sobs. And I know I deserve it. But Benjamin, I made the biggest mistake of my life when I let you go. I was stupid and shallow and I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Rebecca, you need to stop. This isn't fair to either of us. I've been miserable for 2 years, she continued, apparently not hearing me. Every guy I've dated since you has been a disaster. Dante cheated on me and left me in debt. The next guy was emotionally abusive. The one after that was a compulsive liar. I keep comparing everyone to you, and they all fall short. I felt a mix of pity and frustration. I'm sorry you've had bad experiences, but that doesn't change anything between us. Doesn't it? She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. Benjamin, we were good together. We understood each other. We had the same values, the same goals. I know I said terrible things, but I was scared and confused and listening to the wrong people. Rebecca, I know about Luna, she interrupted. I know you're with someone else now. But are you really happy? Are you really in love with her, or are you just settling because you're afraid to take a risk on us again? That crossed a line. Don't you dare question my relationship with Luna. She's an amazing woman who treats me with respect and supports my ambitions. She's everything you never were. Rebecca flinched like I'd slapped her. I could be that for you now. I've changed, Benjamin. I've grown up. I know what really matters now. What really matters is that people show you who they are when they think they have nothing to lose. You showed me exactly who you were when you called me a boring beta loser and threw away 3 years together without a second thought. But people can change. Some can. But the fact that you're here, in my workplace, trying to interfere with my life and my relationship, shows me that you haven't changed as much as you think you have. I stood up to leave, but she grabbed my arm. Benjamin, please. I'm begging you. Just give me one chance to prove that I'm different now. One coffee, one conversation. That's all I'm asking. I gently removed her hand from my arm. Rebecca, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I am not interested in rekindling our relationship. I am not interested in being friends. I am not interested in staying in contact with you in any capacity. I have built a good life without you, and I intend to keep it that way. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the exact moment when she realized that I was serious. This is about revenge, isn't it? She said, her voice suddenly turning cold. You're enjoying this. You're enjoying watching me struggle while you succeed. This has nothing to do with revenge. This is about boundaries and self-respect. Right. Self-respect, she laughed bitterly. The great Benjamin Kumar, too good to give his ex-fiancé a second chance. Too successful to associate with someone who made a mistake. Rebecca, you need to leave now. She stood up, her sadness replaced by anger. Fine. But I want you to know something. When your perfect little relationship with Luna falls apart, and it will, because you're not nearly as interesting as you think you are, don't come crawling back to me. I won't, I said simply. After she left, I sat in the conference room for a few minutes, processing what had just happened. Then I called Luna. How did it go? She asked. About as well as you'd expect. She basically begged me to take her back, then got angry when I refused. Are you okay? I thought about it. Yeah, actually I am. If anything, this conversation confirmed that I made the right choice 2 years ago. She hasn't really changed, she's still manipulative and self-centered. She just regrets the consequences of her choices. Good. I mean, not good that she's struggling, but good that you can see the situation clearly. That weekend, Luna and I went house hunting and put an offer on a beautiful colonial in the suburbs. It was accepted the following Monday. But the Rebecca situation wasn't quite over yet. The following week, I received a call from Patricia Hassan, my boss at Meridian. "Benjamin, I need to speak with you about a delicate matter. Can you come to my office?" When I arrived, Patricia looked uncomfortable. "We received a complaint yesterday from someone claiming to have personal knowledge of misconduct in your hiring and promotion process." My stomach dropped. "What kind of misconduct?" "The complaint alleges that you used your position to unfairly target a former employee for termination, and that your hiring at Meridian was based on a personal vendetta rather than qualifications." I felt sick. "Patricia, you know that's not true. My hiring was based on my professional qualifications, and the departmental restructuring was based on legitimate business needs." "I know that, Benjamin. Your track record speaks for itself. But we have to investigate any formal complaints. HR is going to need to review the documentation from your hiring process and the marketing department restructuring." "Of course. I'll cooperate fully with any investigation." The investigation took 3 weeks and was the most stressful period of my professional life. They interviewed everyone involved in my hiring process, reviewed all the documentation from the marketing department restructuring, and even brought in the external consulting firm that had validated my operational assessment. In the end, the investigation concluded that all personnel decisions had been made based on legitimate business criteria and that there was no evidence of personal bias or misconduct. Rebecca's complaint was dismissed as unfounded. But the experience taught me something important about the cost of success. When you achieve something significant, there will always be people who try to tear you down or diminish your accomplishments. Sometimes those people are strangers who resent your success, and sometimes they're people you once cared about who can't accept that you've moved on without them. Patricia called me into her office after the investigation concluded.